Hi, hello, I'm Sam Harrison. I read, review, and discuss fantasy and science fiction books. And today we're here to have a full spoiler discussion of Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. Matt's got his copy on the shelf. I've got mine above my head. And
I have indeed, just up here. I got my paperback as well.
I started talking about Matt without introducing him. Matt's here too.
Hello.
For those of you who are just joining us for the first time, as Malazan fans, Matt and I read the entire Wheel of Time together over the last 18 months or so. Had a fantastic time. We had some ups, we had some downs. More downs for Matt than me. I think I loved most of the books apart from one. And we decided our next big project would be reading Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. So we're sticking to the main 10 books. We've committed to at least 3, which is the same thing we did with Wheel of Time. And if we hate all 3 books, maybe we'll switch on to something else, but I don't think that'll be the case. But while
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
No.
Though your non-spoiler review says it could be.
Let's get into it then. Let's get into it. So I've already posted my spoiler-free review. So I won't go too deep into my thoughts, but while we've got you here, Matt, why don't we have a bit of a non-spoiler discussion, and then we'll kind of sideline into the spoiler zone when we're ready to talk specifics. So what did you think of the book?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was superb. So like everyone says, it's confusing, you're not going to understand everything. So I think going into it with that mindset of there's going to be stuff that happens that isn't necessarily going to make sense, or you're not going to know all the background helped. There's few things stand out for me in this book. There's some superb scenes, some superb moments within it. I think the prose and the dialogue, there's some elements and there's certain passages within that which are just outstanding, and it really spoke to me. And you know, I'm curious to see how Erikson's writing builds from here, because I believe this is his first book they wrote.
Yeah,
I know he did scripts. So as a debut novel, some of the writing and the prose is just exceptional for me, and the way it spoke to me, and the way the imagery he creates, and it has elements of being a little bit flowery in places, but accessible, very accessible to read. And I sort of devoured this pretty quickly, and then I read the afterwards saying by Steven Erikson saying, you know, take your time, don't read it too fast. And I was like, well, that's too late for that, Steve. I've already read it. So yeah, I thought there were some really epic moments, some sort of huge cinematic moments that were superb. I loved the tension between characters, the fact that the lack of trust in many places between different characters, and that we see different characters differently from different perspectives. There's no real clear this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. There's a lot of sort of grey within that, and depending on whose viewpoint you're seeing as to whether you get a positive perspective or a negative perspective of the individuals in that book. I love the mystery. I love sort of the scale. I mean, we've got so much going on in this book. There's a lot of characters, but there's so much, you know, we get bits of like history thrown in, we get different ways of writing, we get a magic system, which I have no idea how it works, but is fascinating. And there's so many cool elements, be they characters or scenes, that just kept me flowing with this book. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. The only critique I probably have of it is that the ending was good but not great. So I felt the ending, like some things happen in the ending, and obviously this is non-spoiler bit, but there was things that happened that tied things off and left things open as well. But those things that got tied off almost too easily, in a sense. There were sort of
Hmm.
these things happened that, and there may well have been things in the book that I missed that were pointing to this happening, but it felt another thing came out of nowhere and sort of solved the problem, or one of the
Mm.
problems. Be that maybe only temporarily, but that sort of brought the ending down a little bit for me. But the rest of the book I thoroughly enjoyed. So it's a solid read. So I think we've got the reverse of what we had for Wheel of Time, where you were Eye of the World, you were incredibly positive, and I was, yeah, it was okay. I think we're sort of the other way around this time.
Yeah, I think the big problem for me with this book was I felt like there was not very much in terms of like direction and plot. Um, I think that huge amounts of this book is very well done. I thought the characterization was very well done. I really liked the world building, so I liked the kind of drip fed world. So things like, they talk about warrens all the time, and like I really liked that he didn't explain that, and he's like, you can work it out, like, you know what you need to know in this book. There was never a point where I was like, I'm super confused about what's going on, because I do feel like he really does give you everything you need to know. And my other issue, like I was saying, the two issues, I guess, really actually were plot and characters. So the characterization was very well done, but it took me a long time through the book for me to find a character to latch onto. And that I was like, it took me a while to find a character I cared about, um, which is unusual for me in books. There's usually somebody I can like root for. Um, but I think that a few early doors decisions in the book took a little bit of that away, and and made it take a lot longer for me to care about the characters than I may have normally. Um, there were also some sections that I outright disliked. We've talked about these, the dream sequences, but that's because I've never really vibed with like dream sequency style stuff in any sort of medium. Ironic that we just finished Wheel of Time, which has, I would say, like a third of the plot is set in the world of dreams, but that felt a little bit that felt less like dream sequences and more like another plane or like another world that they travel to, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, that was very much more. This is another dimension in
Mm,
time or space where things can happen that is outside of the normal world. Yeah, as this felt,
mm,
this did like Coupe's dreams were very much dreams, and things were
mm,
happening in the dreams, and some of those things were happening in reality, but they were dreams. Yeah,
mm. And I don't know how. I think I read so bit of a flashback. Had read the first like 100 or so pages before, so I'd read them like over a decade ago, when on a podcast I was listening to, somebody was waxing lyrical about Malazan. It was just a video game podcast, and the guy was a big, like, he liked the exact same kind of stories as I did in games, and I was like, oh, if he likes this Malazan thing so much, I'll give it a shot. And so I did, and I was not ready for that, depth of storytelling, as someone who was barely reading one or two books a year. Now, obviously, I'm a lot more experienced as a reader. But the thing, when I talked to friends of mine who love Malazan, and made my complaints about this book, all of them were like, "Oh yeah, we totally agree. Don't worry, it gets better." So, and it wasn't like I did not enjoy my time with the book. I was never, well, apart from the dream sequences, there was never a point where I was like, I'm just going to put this book down for a bit. I was always very much like, I read, I was reading it every single day. I'm reading Dead House Gates at the moment, and kind of having the same sort of thing. I'm though one of my commenters was like, you should read Malazan books over longer periods of time. Like don't rush them. And while that's kind of antithetical to how I usually read books, I've decided to trust them, and I'm trying to read like 2 chapters a day at the moment, like basically one chunk of one chapter in the morning and one chapter in the evening, and that's going quite well. I am behind on that schedule because of multiple reasons, but hoping to get back on track soon. And anyway, yeah, it's I think Gardens of the Moon was a very different book to what I was expecting, mostly because I think that with Wheel of Time, my expectations were really informed how I felt about Eye of the World. So when we read Eye of the World, I was expecting it to be rubbish, or like very, very slow and plodding, and to like kind of have to wade uphill through that book. And I felt very much the opposite. I felt like it breezed by. I think I read it in like 4 or 5 days, and then Gardens of the Moon, I was expecting to be confused, but still, like reading an incredibly high quality book, and I didn't feel that in Gardens of the Moon. I was quite disappointed versus my expectations, not in a like this book was bad way, but more in a I was expecting a 5 out of 5 that was a bit confusing. And what I actually got was I ended up rating it a 3 out of 5. And for me, a 3 out of 5 is usually something that has a lot of points that interest me, but a lot of issues that get in the way of that interest. And that's kind of how I sum up the book, really.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so I would, if you're doing a 5 point, I'd probably do four out of 5. It's not a 5 out of 5 read, as I say, and that's mainly for me due to the ending. I think the characterization is great. I was never lost about who we were with at any point, and we changed characters quite frequently. And I know for some readers that's off-putting, but actually that worked for me because you're always touching base with what was going on
Yeah,
with
I like
various
that as
people.
well.
So that actually worked quite well. But it does mean, going to your point about caring characters, it does mean you don't spend as much time in a chunk with an individual, so you don't get to sort of wallow in whatever they're dealing with at the time. You sort of have a little bit of time with them, and then you're off somewhere else, or you see it from another perspective. So you don't necessarily connect. Now, there's not really a main character of the book or main characters. There's lots of characters, and a few are slightly bigger than others, but there's not really a main character within the story that you say, or a main group of characters say, this is who the story, the crux of the story follows, and we have all these other little parts. Like Wheel of Time, we've got half a dozen core characters throughout the series and a huge cast around them. In this book, it feels like there's just a huge cast.
Yeah, big ensemble story without kind of that focus that you in the first 2 books of Wheel of Time are almost exclusively Rand books, and I think that allows a little bit of a focus which we don't have here. I'm not that bothered with that aspect of it. I don't mind that it was a little unfocused, and I didn't feel the lack of a antagonist, as it were, but I did feel like, as I was saying, a few early decisions kind of took away some of my investment in characters. Should we shift into the spoiler zone? Yeah,
go for it.
so
So let's start at the beginning then. So there's a few bits that pulled away. I'd be interested to know what they are at the beginning.
So it's when they kill off Paran and then bring him back to life, like straight away, very early on in the book. And for
Yeah.
me, that was such a like, okay, death doesn't matter. So it took me like the whole book to kind of get back my like feeling that there were consequences. So I'm reading, I'm reading this book and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter if these characters die because they'll just be brought back if they're important. And if they're not important, then they won't be brought back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that
there's
was a really
definitely that.
barrier.
Sorry, go on, go on.
That was just a real barrier for me for like the first half of the book. Like I really liked, and then also it happened again to Tata Sale later. Like
Yeah.
happening twice in the same book was very
But
much like,
also happens to the mage, Hairlock. I know
oh,
he comes
Hairlock,
back as
yeah,
like a little
as a
puppet,
puppet,
like a
which I thought was
marionette.
cool. That was
It's cool. I
cool.
mean, there's lots of cool bits. So, like, okay, so the prologue was fine. There wasn't
I
a huge
really
amount, but
liked the prologue actually.
the prologue's good. And I
I
like the dialogue within the prologue because you instantly get there's two soldiers talking, and they obviously know more of what's going on in the world than we do, and they don't therefore explain it to each other.
yeah,
They're just
I
like,
like that a
"Oh,
lot.
did
I
you
didn't
hear
need
this?" It
that.
was like, "Oh yeah, I heard this," and whatever else. I really like that, and also you get the first introduction to Paran at that point when he's a kid, and that was a fine opening scene. Absolutely loved it. The next chapter, two chapters maybe, I can't remember exactly where chapter 4, but just for me they were brilliant. Like, so we start off, we have like this wax witch and this young girl, fisherman's
That was
daughter,
good. Yeah.
at the side of the road, and this huge stream of cavalry coming across, and she's sort of, the young girl sort of admiring them in their shining armor and all their pomp and circumstance and glory. And then there's this like old hag, I think she's described as sort of wax witch, who's, I did just read it because I was looking at the beginning again. Is it Riggy, something like that? And how like she's basically lost, is it 3 husbands and 2 sons to the war, and she lights 5 candles every night, and there's some sort of soul capturing going on within that. And all that, and then she gives like some sort of prophecy to this young girl, that she's going to, they're going to be sort of joint together in some way, and then like she's like grabbed the girl and she's telling her this, and then another soldier comes in and basically smacks her and kills the old hag. And you get all that, but within that, what's interesting, and we know later that she becomes sorry, she gets possessed by Cotillion,
The rope.
the rope,
Tillian, the
yeah,
rope. Yeah.
who's like this master assassin person, and she joins the bridge burners, but her name's become sorry. And I was just reading the first few pages, and that's literally her first line when she's talking to the old hag. She says, "I'm sorry," because she misheard something. So like the young girl, like that then feeds in, which I think is just a nice touch within the writing of how he's built that. But, and I imagine there's loads of stuff. So again, I think this is going to be very much a series, rereadable series like Wheel of Time, where you suddenly pick up on loads of things that you never picked up on the first read
Yeah.
because you have that foresight. But then you sort of see that, and then like Cotillion turns up, and then we get these like huge, great hounds just appearing out of nowhere and just going and just sort of tearing apart this cavalry regiment, and just absolutely. And then we get like the adjutant and Paran at the aftermath of this absolute massacre. And I sort of got like the imagery that was evoked in that was superb. One, I mean, having huge, great like hounds of hell is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But the fact they just rip through a cavalry regiment is outrageous. And then just like sort of, it gave me I'm going to assume you've seen it, but the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan, just like the absolute brutality of war and like death and
Yeah.
destruction and just body parts everywhere and horse parts everywhere, just being absolutely ripped apart. And that as an opening, I was like, and it's sort of quite cinematic, and I suppose that's why I got like the Saving Private Ryan comparison. But it was just like from that point on, I was just like whisked away into this, like, this is outrageous. And then we just like,
Mm.
and I think that's the things he's doing. Like we have like, you know, we have gods just like mixing around, and I thought that was superb. It reminded me very much of, I think probably because I'd listened to Mythos by Stephen Fry, but by Stephen Fry, which is all about Greek gods. Previous to this,
Mm.
just by coincidence, I was like, this is very much sort of Greek gods just playing games
Yeah,
with
it does
humanity
feel
and
like
having
that.
that fun. And I thoroughly enjoyed that as a sort of part of this story. And I like just the epicness, and then you get this like, and I'm gonna jump around a bit because this helps a lot, but like this huge, great,
Mm.
massive, great thing, just land of city, just like floating in the sky over Pale. And you're like, what the
Very
hell is
cool.
this? That is unbelievable. It's got like a bazillion ravens around it. And then we get a raven's point of view, we get a hound's point of view in this book. I mean, we get everything. It's magnificent. But yeah, just like, and just a scale. And like, you know, we touch on the warrants and things like that. But there's, you know, I felt for Paran. I'll probably switch my pronunciation as we go along because I've only read it. I don't know how you're supposed to say it.
I
You know,
also have
for
not
that moment,
audiobooked it, so I won't be
yeah,
able to help this time.
pronunciations are going to be horrific. People just deal with it. Uh,
Mm.
so, but you know, he's like his moment there now, that meeting with Lorne, the adjutant, really well, and sort of that overcoming, because like you get that, it sort of harks back to the prologue where you got that young kid who wants to be a soldier. He's from nobility, but he wants to be a soldier,
Mm.
and now he's seeing the reality of what war and soldiering can be, the aftermath of the destruction.
Yeah,
Just
I really
worked well. I
liked
got that
that
connection.
scene. Yeah, really liked that scene, and I really liked Lorne's character. I thought she was really well done. Just like a very, very interesting, conflicted, well put together character. When it came to the characters that I was connecting with through the book, it was, you know, Paran and Lorne and Anamanda Rake and Whiskey Jack in kind of very near the end of the book. The bridge burners were kind of growing on me. And Crocus, I thought Crocus was great. So yeah,
Yeah, I would put Tattersail. I quite like Tattersail in that side of it,
I
and
really
I like.
liked her, but she's not in it. She's only in it for a few chapters.
Yeah,
Like
that was
I
the gutting
really
part for
liked
me.
her
Yeah,
while she was there.
yeah, yeah, and that's why I mean she does get killed off pretty swiftly. But I liked her bit. So when we go to like the Pale, so after that butchery of the cavalry regiment, we sort of, I think we're going to go to Pale, and we see like
Mm.
the Empire. And what's fascinating about what Erikson has done is like this is sort of not the end of the campaign, but it's drawing to an end. Like the
Mm.
Malazan Empire has pretty much won like six of the Pale's like the sixth of the seven free cities or whatever, or how many cities. Like the last one, Darijistan is the last city standing, free city standing
Mm.
after Pale, and you just see like this, you know. So we've like, had the battle. Like the scene is now Empress. She's already murdered the old emperor, and taken over. All this stuff's happened.
Mm.
We got sort of like coming to the end, and we have like I suppose what would be the cataclysmic battle scene quite near the beginning at the Pale.
Mm.
This
Yeah,
huge, great now just throwing sorcery. We've got this huge, great moon spawn thing floating above Pale, and Anamanda Rake is awesome. Like he's a proper sort of cool character. Like he's huge.
I
He's
think
like
the
7 foot
name is
tall.
cool. Yeah, his
Yeah,
name's
he's 7 foot tall. He's got
cool.
flowing
It was
white
black
hair.
armor. He's got like
He's got
butt
this
length
like
white hair.
yeah, he's got this unbelievably ridiculous sword, which is it
Yeah,
Dragniper? Dragniper?
yeah.
And it's just
And there's
like
a
this
great
like
bit where isn't there a bit where they're like, oh, he didn't even need to draw his sword. He was just using magic to murder everyone. You're like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. And he can turn into a dragon. Okay, he does that later in the
Yeah,
book. But I'm like, this guy can do it all.
still good.
And like his but what's fascinating is you see him at that point in Pale, like trying to defend the city, and you see it all from like mainly Tattersail's point of view. And
Mm,
like he's the baddie.
yeah.
Um
whereas he feels
Yeah,
like he's kind of the goodie by the end of the book.
yeah, yeah. Once you see it from like the people when he goes to Pale, and you see the people with, like, Pale talking to him, he doesn't. He feels like the good guy or a better guy, but he has his own
Mm,
motives. Like, and that's what everyone has in this book. They have their own motives. Like, there
yeah,
isn't.
I
These are
liked
the
his
people of light.
relationship with the alchemist guy, who was like the
Yeah,
alchemist.
Barak.
I think Barak. I really enjoyed Rake's relationship with him. I thought that was really well done. Um, and there's just a lot. There was a lot of really good stuff with that character, with Barak, with like with Krupp, when he was like Krupp's like, oh, I'm just working for the eel, and you're like, oh, well, actually, like we work out later that Krupp is the eel, which I
Yeah,
thought was very well done.
yeah,
Um, and the like all the secret conversations happening in Barak's um like in Brock's apartment. There's the one where no, it's the Raven. So Rake's Raven pretends to be a dog.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
fun.
I love the Raven's point of view as well. But she, like,
Mm,
the Raven had a great sort of dry, sarcastic wit about the world, and like obviously
mm.
ancient Raven. But I love that. Yeah, and she turns into a dog while. And you say Krupp, do you? Okay, I say Krupe.
Oh yeah, I was saying Krupp. Yeah, because I was thinking like um because there's two P's. I think was why I said Krupp.
Yeah, okay. I say Krupe, but just because, like, and what, like, to go back to characterization, what I find fascinating is that, immediately you go into this third person speaking with Krupe, and
Oh, I
like
hate that so much.
it's,
Just talk
yeah, I
normal,
hate it.
man.
Yeah, but this is the thing, like, you immediately go, or I immediately go, this is an arrogant tosspot. Uh, and he kind of is, like, he is. And it's just perfectly because he's going to the third person. He always talks about it in third person. And I
Mm,
like the fact that therefore you get his sort of impression of how he would kind of like the world to see him. But then you also get, like,
mm,
he's actually pretty much a bit of a slob. Like, I think there's like a scene at the end where he's just like passed out with like food just over his face, and like he's
mm,
always just stuffing his face or pick up the dregs of someone's beer that they've left or whatever. He's just like
mm,
a proper slob, but he has this like grandeur he gives himself, and then he has like a relative level of grandeur because he is the eel, who's like this master spy network person pulling strings in
mm.
the background. So again, quite a complex character.
I I've really enjoyed the like American sitcom-esque thing of everybody meeting in this bar and like everybody being in the same bar and being in there over and over and different characters meeting there. And like that to me screams like this used to be a screenplay, which obviously it did.
Yeah,
So Erickson's written it to go, well, we don't need 10 sets. Everyone can just be in this bar.
yeah,
But I think that returning to it over and over again helped characterize not
mm,
just the location, but the characters who spent their time there. So like that was really well done and I really liked it. Um, one of the big other not issues, there were a lot of times where I was like, I I can feel the screenplay in this
mm.
novel. Did you feel that?
Yeah. I think I understand what you're saying. Definitely, there's sort of an element of, yeah, this was obviously written as, well, we know this was written, as you say, as a screenplay first. And yeah, I can get an element of that where it is like scenes are devised and conversations are devised for the screen rather than
Mm,
for a book. But it never impacted me in a sort of a negative way, I suppose. I sort of just rolled through it.
mm,
And there was enough, and this is like the prose was like, some of it was just, for me, it's just stupendously just beautiful prose, and some of it was a
really
bit
well, really good
less.
prose.
Yeah,
Mm,
and converting from a screenplay to a book, I imagine is quite challenging.
yeah.
So, but for me, all worked pretty well. But yeah, I like the sort of cheers effect where
Mm,
everyone knows your
yeah.
name, and you got like the regulars like Mies and the other lady who are sort of all involved in different places as well. And as you say, like
Mm,
different people, like Sorry turns up at one point, and you know, the other characters flow in and out, and we get to see like the little band of Rallick or the assassin, Cole,
mm,
the drunkard, who like you quickly. And it's nice because, and what I like about this book is nice because you start to pick things out before they're stated.
mm,
Like Cole being, what's her name? Simtal? Is it Simtal? The lady, her ex-husband, who was like an
yeah.
aristocrat, and then he sort of got played, and now he's just a drunk.
Yeah.
And obviously you got Crocus, who's like the thief, and then you got Coupe, who's, well, the eel, but also like I don't know even what Coupe is. Like he is a mage of some sort, some level. He obviously has a magical ability within that, but
Mm.
he's sort of a wheeler dealer sort of person in the background. But yeah, you've got that nice group, and I think they play off each other quite well. And but
Yeah.
they're all obviously supporting each other. But they're very, what's curious is they've also all got their own thing. Like you've got Crocus is obviously thieving. He's quite young. He makes some pretty reckless decisions, but he's also sort of growing up. And I
Mm.
think his I could say his interpretation of his relationship with uh Chalice, the
Yeah.
really pretty
It's
lady
very
that he
interesting.
steals from. Yeah, because you only ever see it from his viewpoint and how he creates this sort of story that isn't reality, um,
Yeah.
of how he feels about her, and obviously she does not share in those feelings,
Mm.
as we find out later. But that was fascinating to see him making decisions, but also being sort of small characters in global events.
Mm.
Like at one point, I think Crocus is running through the street, and like he's so focused on what he's doing, he's not noticed that fucking Moonspawn is just like hovering over his head, like the pale's just been, it's a Dawagistan has just been like covered by Moonspawn because like they've just turned up. All these like things, like there's such big global events taking place where there's all these like small characters, and the Bridgeburn is a bit like that as well, where it's sort of, or a few of them are just like a common soldier or a common sapper
Mm.
within this sort of huge empire war going on. You're playing this small part within it.
Yeah.
And again, I just loved the dynamics of everything, and like the different characters, and like how Rallick always trying to get sort of revenge for what happened to his friend
Mm.
Cole. And so we see him, I think we first see him when he's trying to kill Simtar, the lady, but he actually then
Yeah.
kills the man she's with, who happens to be another councilman, and that like means there's not enough votes for the head councilman Turban Orr to get what he wants to get through. And then like there's all this politics going on in the background, and like, but
I thought
Ragor's
that
not
stuff
really
was really well done as well. The like him trying to get the votes to basically capitulate to
yeah,
Malazan and Lasine and be like, well, let's be a vassal state, and but I get to be the top dog in the vassal state.
yeah, yeah.
And I
He
liked his
continues to get to
character.
run the city. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I really liked his character and the way that he kind of, very like self-important. Also liked that he was like this master duelist, which obviously comes back at the end.
oh, that ending is so good. that
Yeah,
that duel with him and,
that's
oh
the best
god,
moment
I'll
in
let
the
you.
book, I think.
It
Yeah,
is
I think that's
super.
my favorite. I really also liked the idea of the Otatarl blade that Lorne
Mm,
carries that negates all magic. I thought that was really well done and fun. I liked that a lot. Lorne as a character, I felt whenever she was on page, I was interested. Um, she was probably the character that I connected with the most in the book. Again,
Okay.
sad that she is killed off at the end.
Yeah, and I think she's
But
actually
probably
dead
not.
as well.
I was about to say it's probably not the last time we see her.
Well, I mean, who knows? But I that one felt like an actual death.
It feels
Uh,
more permanent than the others, yeah.
but yeah, and I
Because
think that was interesting because we had like her and like Tattersail have like this. They're having a meal with whoever the High Fist is. I forget his name. I think it was
Dujek, Dujek.
Dujek. Yeah, they're sort of all in this place, and like then she like realizes that Tattersail has this like horrific thing she did in the past where she just basically lost control and just started slaughtering innocents. Basically war crimes. And that's fascinating because we quite like Tattersail, or like she's
Yeah.
quite a nice, like she seems like a goodie in general. Like, okay, she's on the Empire side
Yeah.
to a certain extent, but she's like a goodie, and like her relationship with like Hairlock, who's like now this marionette puppet, who's a bit of an ass. And up
Yeah.
something, you got Tashrian, who's like the high.
Patron, I was saying. Yeah.
Okay, this is fascinating. Who like is like the person in charge with Dujek of the invasion, but is like also like in the battle he seems to like slaughter his own people, or like there's some sorcery going on, like who's killing who is a bit unclear. And like you like, well, he definitely seems like a baddie
I
in the
felt
book.
like
And like
Tatron had been tasked by the Empress to take out the bridge burners, and she'd said, get them on the front lines and get them somewhere easy, and then do as much damage as you can. I think that
yeah,
was his mission. He was one of those characters very easy to dislike because obviously he's taking, he's going against the grain, not against the grain, he's going against his own side. And Taxel, obviously, you're meant to like.
yeah,
I liked with Taxel like the deck of dragons. I thought that was a really good concept, like the kind of tarot adjacent sort of reading. There's another really good one of those in Deadhouse Gates as well, which I really
okay,
liked. Not Tassel, there's just a deck of dragons reading
yeah,
in, and it's nowhere near as involved. And it's really well done. It's very simple, and I really liked it. It was a moment where I was like, they're linking. It felt like Steven Erikson was
okay,
linking things together. I'm still on the quest for like, what's the story of this series? So in Gardens of the Moon, I feel like I knew that there's kind of several stories going on, but I didn't feel as we went across the book that there was a story. Like if somebody said, "What's this book about?" I would kind of have to be like, well, okay, so there's some soldiers that have fallen out of favor and they've been sent as an advance squad to try and infiltrate the last free city again so that the Empire can finally conquer it. And then you have some other characters that kind of rotate around that. And then there's a lot of political machinations in that city. And like, that was really good. And I was like, this, one of the other reasons I was like, this feels like a screenplay is because I felt like we had quite a closed off story. I don't feel like when I finished reading the book, I was like, it didn't feel like the first book in a 10-book series. It felt like, like the first movie in a trilogy almost, where it almost felt, not almost, it almost felt like, we're not sure we're going to get to continue this, so we'll try and wrap up in a satisfying way. And I do think the ending is bad. Like, well, I think the ending is bad, as you say. I know you liked it, but it felt very much the ending was kind of here's a load of new elements and story things that we haven't really talked to you about. Here they are, and then the book's over. Which is like Sanderson talks about in his writing lectures. He was like, The big mistake I made in Mistborn was introducing a new thing at the very climax of the book. And
Yeah,
every time I see that now, I'm like, oh, he's doing it. He's doing a Sanderson. He's doing a Mistborn.
yeah. I think they're just on Tattletale. So I think
Oh,
just to close
yeah.
that up, so we see her and like we're really positive about her, and then we get her that bit with her Param, and we're like, they're a bit of thing, but we're like, she's a good guy. And then we get this scene with Lorne the Adjunct, and you realise actually she's got like some horrific act she's done in the past, which is
Feels
just
like
dreadful.
everyone's got something
Yeah,
in this
exactly, and
book.
that's what I like.
Everyone's
There's a past.
done something.
Yeah, and that's another thing about picking this book up where it is. It's not the beginning of a story. Everyone's got a past. The Empire's got a past. The bridge burners are already the elites, but actually they're on the way down and trying to get rid of them because they're seen as a danger and a potentially, assuming the Empress sees them as a potential danger to her authority because they are so well respected beyond her control. And like, we see Tassel from the side, and Lorne sort of has to make this decision of, is she the woman she was in the past who witnessed what Tattletale did and the impact on her life, or is she now the adjunct to the Empress? And she chooses to be the adjunct, which, I mean, it doesn't work out for her in the end. But, that's the choice she makes. And, and I think, we then get, Tattletale then goes off, and we've also got like, from the original Pale Battle, we've got Night Chill is another mage, sorceress gets killed in one of the battles, and then like her partner, who's another mage whose name escapes me, is basically carrying around her corpse, and like, and then Tassel puts a spell on it so it doesn't stink so much, or it doesn't stops rotting, and then like he's sent to kill Tassel, and then she does get killed, but then she sort of resurrects, or a spirit goes into like the bones of Night Chill, and like then she's like reborn as a kid with this nomadic people whose name is it Rivies? Is it the Rivy?
I couldn't tell you. You couldn't
And
put
like
a
there's all
gun
this
to
stuff
my head.
going
I'd
on. Then she
tell
meets
you the name of those
yeah,
characters.
yeah, and then she meets as a child, but it's like she seems to be aging rapidly from the way I get the story, but seems to be aging quite rapidly as a kid. And like she meets Paran, I believe, and obviously there's some sort of connection because they knew each other in the past and whatever else. And it's all just like there's a lot going on with Tessa, and I think I'm expecting we'll get more from her in later books. But yeah, I like Lorne. I thought she was very good, and she obviously had methodology, but she chose the Empress, and then she goes, then we get like the Kalanimas, who's like this ancient undead being of like the first inhabitants of the world from like hundreds of thousands of years ago. And basically, and he calls himself Tool, which I thought was quite amusing. And there is humor in this book. Like him being Tool, he's quite dry sense of humor.
He's
I
very
think
dry
like
and funny.
having Hairlock as like this marionette just running around Warrens, firing off magic, trying to kill everyone is also quite amusing. Just because it's a ridiculous visual thing to think about. So there is some entertaining moments within the bleakness as well. And they're trying to, and like what I didn't get me the ending was we have this what feels like a huge build up about this being that they're gonna sort of unleash onto the world, and like it seems like it's going to be unstoppable, and like when it first comes out you're like this is going to be a huge climax, this is going to be absolutely massive. And I forget what they call it. What's they called it? What's the
Is Jag something Jag maybe?
yeah. Oh,
It feels like it felt almost like Godzilla-esque to me. In my mind, I'm imagining like a gigantic walking monster man walking towards Darujistan. That was how I kind of saw it. I don't know whether that's actually accurate or not, but that was my imagination. Like I wasn't seeing somebody who was like a person size. I was seeing somebody who was like a building size, which I
Yeah,
thought
and
was interesting and well done, like a good visual, if that's what it was.
I think that's what I mean. Like the build up of, this. I can't see what it is now, which is going to bug me. Yeah, I think it is Jagat. But anyway, this is the build up of this existential crisis, this risk, this huge, powerful being coming back and, basically destroying the world. And sort of this is the Empress's idea, is just to unleash this on the Rajasthan. And I didn't, and he comes out and then like he shows like how immensely powerful he is. Like he's dropping mountains and he's killing fighting dragons and killing off dragons. And it's immense. And then it ends. So he gets stopped and then he possesses, is it Mammoth? Focus's uncle.
Yeah.
And then and the bit I didn't know about the ending is then like this other force, this God, the names, Azieth, whatever it is, this force comes in and like basically grows up and like roots and trees and branches just like engulf, sort of drag him down, and like this house is built. This random house is built in the middle of nowhere in the gardens where they're having this party. And I'm like, what is all this new, going back to your point about the Samson adding all these new elements in? It just feels like, and I'm curious as to what they are, but it feels like, out of place because it almost doesn't feel fair as a reader that you've read through this book and then something completely out of left field and maybe there is something in there that I've just missed and there is build up to it and it's not as left field as it felt, but it felt very left field, just out of nowhere. This happens and that's the end of that risk, But then on the flip side, like, going back to the point you made about Orr and Rallick's battle, I mean, that was really swift as well. Like that was over in like 2 seconds. But that worked because we knew the characters. We got this build up of Orr being a duelist and whatever else. But we knew Rallick Orr was an incredible assassin, and then he sort of ingested this magical dust and like gave him all these other powers and stuff, which I just loved. He's like, I'm not quite sure what it's going to do, but I'm just going to rub it all over me and just see what happens. It seemed to work out. But it gave me very much, talking about cinematography, it gave me very much of, I can't remember which Indiana Jones film it is, but where they're in the market and this swordsman pulls out this huge sword. He's like, and he just put it going back. It's a bit like that, just like slit his throat, done. All over. But the ending, just because there's all these bits thrown in, and the bits I like about the ending is that the way he got everybody in the same place worked for me. It didn't feel forced. Like that all worked, like tying all these storylines together, all these people together, all worked. The bit that got to me is we've got this huge build up of this existential risk, and then there's like someone released, I can't remember who released it now, this demon, one of Tashian's demons, and then it's like destroying the city, and then Anna just comes down and turns into a dragon, which is, I mean, cool, but and things like that. So there's the ending was cataclysmic and it was good, but it wasn't it didn't live up to the build up because of the left field finishing of it for me.
Yeah.
I think that was the most disappointing part of the
It
book.
felt a
But
bit
then,
tacked on, kind of like
yeah,
the endings to the first two Wheel of Times, where Jordan didn't really know where to end his books or how to end his books. And he started to get better in book 2, and it feels like this is about that level. So it
yeah,
feels
I would
kind of
agree. Yeah,
it's stronger than Either World, probably stronger than The Great Hunt, because The Great Hunt is the jewel in the sky at Falmer, and it has a lot of those vibes. It has a lot of the
yeah,
like, wouldn't it be cool if Anamander Rake turned into a dragon? You know, like, and that, you know, that works for this book, and I do feel like I feel like going back to this ending will be really interesting, having read
yeah.
later books. The ending is like specifically called out by fans as being weak as well. So I think that
Okay.
that's a good sign for the next few books.
Yeah, yeah, that is, and I
But
think like, you know, there's still a lot of curiosity about, you know, learning more about the world and the people
mm,
within it. And I know, I think when I was listening to your non-spoiler, you're saying that the next book is a completely different place with a different set of characters.
mm,
So that's I'm prepared for that when I start it, so that's fine. But I am really, really curious about all the things that are happening, and I did really like what we talked about the gods' involvement and how we sort of went, you know, like you've got Opon twins, like Chance Luck playing their hand and
mm.
having a bit of fun with people, but then also having the fear elements of, you know,
Shadow
Shadow
Throne,
coming, Shadow
Cotillion, the
Throne.
Road,
Yeah, exactly.
lots
And
of
the
really cool
hounds,
names.
exactly. But they're giving like Paran this sword, and he was able to stab the hound and wound and kill
Yeah,
wound the hound. I don't know if he killed him, but wound the hound. But then he then saves the hounds from like Anamander Rake's sword
mm,
as well, because like, I mean, that is a cool sword. Like
yeah,
there's no debate. Like there's like just like change the souls within it, and like I mean, I don't know really what's happening, but it's cool regardless. And
I don't
you
know
know,
what's
says them.
happening, but it's cool. The
It's
Malazan
cool, yeah. I
story.
mean, there was quite a bit of that in this book. I must admit, there was a bit. I mean, that's cool, but I don't really understand it. Right? It looks cool in my head. That looks really
Mm,
cool. Um, and then he gets like there's a bit where there's one of the hounds is dead, and he gets like blood on him. And then there's a
yeah,
bit later on where something's happening towards the end. I can't say what happened, but what I remember is like there's like someone's trying to put their will on him, but because he's got like there's some content about the blood of a hound being within Paran, so it cannot be enslaved.
right.
And like the hound
Yeah, I
recognizes
think I
him as
remember.
well. Do you remember? There's also a
Yeah,
bit where like one of the hounds doesn't actually attack him because he's like the hound is confused.
yeah.
So
I
obviously,
think there'll be
presumably can smell. So there's obviously something
some
building
great
from
stuff
that.
coming up. I think,
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
with one of the books being called Toll of the Hounds.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah,
We
that's
know
true.
there's hound stuff happening later on. And
Yeah.
from memory, the cover of that book is like a mountain, and then the dog is the size of a mountain, like stood next to it, chained up. So that sounds like it'll be great. But
So, but yeah, and I think like you know, I did really like the animals. I love the fact we got a hound's POV at one point as well. I just thought that is genius.
I'm more Team Raven than Team Hound. I thought that the Ravens were much more interesting.
Yeah, the Ravens were a lot more. I mean, the Raven was great. Yeah, the Raven was quite fascinating, and also like, I mean, obviously you got also things going on beyond it. Like obviously the Raven, you got Anamander Rake and the Raven have a relationship, but then also like, is it Caladan or Caladran Brood? Who's
Caladan
like,
Brood, yeah.
I can't quite figure out if he's like, I get in my head he's like Anamander's Rake, like number one, like
Like
he's
his
his
rival?
main.
I thought he was
Yeah,
like his
but
rival
that's what I couldn't figure out.
almost.
Is like, is he the rival? Is he like the commander in chief? But and Anamander
It
Rake's like,
feels It feels like he's
king. I don't really know. I couldn't
the
quite figure out
Caladan
like
Brood.
relationship between them.
Yeah, I thought Brood was like the leader of the opposing faction to the Malazans,
Mm,
and the Rake is helping, but maybe not. Maybe their goals align, but maybe their
okay.
morals and vibes do not align. That's how I came away from it. I felt like Brood was maybe a antagonist not to be trusted, where Rake was more of a like free agent who's like, these Malazans are up to no good. I'll help Caladan Brood out, and then it becomes something else.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character then in the book? Who do you reckon? I think for me it is Lorne, although
Okay.
I really liked a lot of the Darujistan lads. I liked Malik. I thought Turban Orr was very fun as like a rubbish like heel character. He was good. Crocus, a lot of time for. Sorry, I liked Sorry a lot across the book. I think that when Paran died and was brought back to life, and then Tatsel died and was brought back to life, I was like, actually, I think the character I am now most interested in is Sorry. Like seeing the depths that she shrinks to, the like what happens to her, and then of course her kind of shoving off the possession of Cotillion by the end of the book, and choosing to call herself Absalar, becoming this kind of new third character, which I really liked that as well. Like her kind of being like, I don't know who I am or what I've done or where I
Mm,
am, but like kind of glomming on to Crocus, and I thought those two characters worked well together. It's interesting that obviously Crocus is obsessed with Chalice for like the whole book, and then he meets one other girl, and he's like, "Hmm, this one isn't awful. Maybe I'll switch my affections."
yeah, exactly. No, I think Sorry is definitely up there. But I think what's interesting about Sorry is that Sorry is really Cotillion
Yeah,
for the majority of the book, and like we don't
I
we
also
don't
love
actually
that
get her
everyone is
name.
really scared of her.
Yeah,
Like,
well,
I
you would
love
be. I
that
mean, she's
everyone's terrified of her.
terrifying.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, but I think what's fascinating for me about her character is I don't think we get her name at the beginning, so we don't actually know what her real name ever was. I might be mistaken in that, but I don't think we do. I don't remember
I
getting her
don't
name.
think we do.
And then for the whole book, she's pretty much she's Cotillion, which is like this master assassin in a girl's body, basically, or a young
Hmm.
lady's body. I'm not quite sure how old she is, but I get very young anyway.
Hmm. I think
And
she's meant to be
uh,
like 15, 16.
okay, yeah, I was thinking early teens, but yeah, okay, that's fine. So um, so yeah, so she's basically Cotillion for the whole book, and then she like breaks out. But we also know that there's a connection between her and the hag, the candle wax witch person as well. So like, I mean, oh, I'm assuming we get more of her at some point, because she feels like a big character who's got a lot of exploring of self-identity to do,
Hmm.
because she doesn't know who she is, and also she's been possessed for Cotillion. There's also some sort of connection to this old hag. I don't know how that works, but there's a bit in there about, is it Quick Ben, who's like trying to heal her, and he says something about like there's something in her brain like holding back the worst parts.
Yeah,
It's like, do you want me to heal that? And they're like, nah, maybe not.
yeah.
'Cause-
It
And
feels like that's the old lady, isn't it? Like
well,
the
that's the
old
impression I
lady
got.
is in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the impression I got, that she's sort of there, sort of protecting her in a sense from the outside world. And I loved Whiskey. I love the views, as you say, like everyone's scared of her, but I love Whiskey Jack's. Like everyone else is like, there's something really wrong with her. Like she's possessed. Like she's not. And Whiskey Jack is sort of yeah, you may be right, but also maybe she's just seen horrific things in her life, and just this is how she survives.
Mm,
Because war is hell, and people get caught up in it, and she's just that's the way she survives, and how he's like sort of clinging to the hope that she's just. I say hope; it's not really hope, but clinging to the idea that she is just human. That's
mm,
the right way of phrasing it. I think it's fascinating within that, and I am really curious about her and Crocus and how she comes to terms, and also like the name she's chosen. Like, what
yeah,
impact does that have any impact on
definitely.
her? Like, because it's like isn't it the name of like the goddess of thieves, or like their
Yeah,
god or patron saint, or however we want to being it.
yeah.
I
So
was confused about who's
she's
gods and
shaken
who
off
wasn't.
one god, and now she wants to name herself after another one. I
Yeah,
remember Crocus
exactly.
being like, "People are going to be really upset that you've chosen that name." She's like, "Well, I've chosen it now."
Yeah, it's my choice. It might be the first choice I've made in a long time, but it's actually mine. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, no, that was really good, and I think she's definitely up there as one of my favorites. I did really like Tattersail.
yeah, me too.
I know,
I liked
obviously,
also that she was described as not being a super hot, you know, she was described as, being a bit overweight and not being
yeah, a
particularly
bit rounded.
attractive.
Yeah,
Yeah, I liked that we have a bit more diversity in these characters, like
yeah,
the way that the characters are described, that they are quite diverse, which is I really liked. And I'm hoping to see more of that as we go. Some interesting stuff
yeah,
in the second book where Erikson is just referring to people being like, and this person was a so and so. I'm like, is that another race? Does that just mean that he's got like a tan? Like, I don't. I wish there was a little bit more explanation. Maybe I should be looking at the glossary for these things, but I refuse. Tell me on the
yeah.
page
You'll get. I think these all come to light as we sort of go
as we
through
work
it.
our way through.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think more
we'll
will become clearer.
slowly. I think it's. I think that the thing with Malazan that I think I have been holding in my head as I read it is that it is kind of like the iceberg. Like
Hmm.
what we're reading right now is the tip that you can see above the ocean, and there's so much story that will recontextualize that coming, and that is what, like, when I was reading book one and being like, I'm not really connecting with anyone. I'm struggling a bit with looking for a story to follow. And a lot of my trust in the book was like, this is so well written, and I really like the characters. Well, I say I really like the characters. I like the character writing, and I liked some of the characters a lot. And I was basically reading it, going like, well, I know it's going to come good, and I know that it will, if I stick with it, be a worthwhile experience. So the and also, I guess in book one there is a bit more of a plot because characters have, I say, a bit more of a plot. I'm not even 200 pages into book two, so I can't complain too much. I'm just waiting. I really, really want there to be a direction. It's like my big problem with Joe Abercrombie's first book, The Blade itself, was that until like 80% into the book, none of the characters have a goal or aim in mind. It's very much like that people are trying to like not get killed.
Yeah, and
And
I think
I do want a bit more of like a direction and a goal. I'm happy for that to come later because the book is so well written.
yeah,
So
I think like there are. I think within it, I don't think we necessarily explore them as much in Gardens and Moon, but there are definitely plot lines within it. So we've got like the bridge burners. We've got the Empress trying to get rid of the bridge burners. We've got the bridge burners and Dujek basically forming some kind of rebellion against the Empress and her treatment of it. We know that's sort of brewing in the background, and they're trying to survive until they can actually launch that. And then there's the Um, but then we've got like the small, just sort of broad level things, like the Empire is continuing its war, trying to dominate the world, and there's this like group of rebellion. And remember, like Whiskey Jack was like the head of the army. Like Dujek used to report to Whiskey Jack, and then he got demoted. We're not really sure why.
There's
So
definitely
that's,
something going on there.
yeah, is that, and this is what I mean. There's so
Well,
much history and
is Whiskey
background that we
Jack?
don't necessarily get.
I feel like Whiskey Jack was like the Emperor's man, and then
Mm,
when Lasine kills the Emperor and takes over, she kind of sidelines all of the Emperor's boys, which is why, you know, the bridge burners are out of favor, which is why Dujek has been sent off to maybe an unwinnable battle, you know. I think
yeah,
that's that's the vibe that I got, was that they were very much like the Emperor's right hand men, and so that's, you know, that's where they've come back to.
yeah, I would agree with that absolutely. And I think what's fascinating is, you know, the bridge burners have got this great reputation. Not 100% clear why. Like we don't really.
Mm,
If you think about what did they actually achieve in this book, nothing.
very
Like,
Dad's Army vibes.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, they planted a load of bombs around, and then realized the whole city was sat on a huge ball of gas and would just blow up into the sky at the last minute. So that's curious, but I think there's definite plot lines running through it. But I understand what you're saying, like with regard to. But I think that also fits with such an ensemble cast. Like I think everyone has their own motives. I don't think they're necessarily always that clear. I think I'm curious about Anamander Rake, but we don't really. I don't think we get his point of view really very much. We very much see him from other people's point of view. One bit I have to say is when they go to like the party at the end, and he just basically wears a dragon mask, and he's like, "Oh, no one's going to recognize me." And he's like this huge, great guy with flowing white hair, and I think he still has a massive sword on his back. Like I think he takes that with him, and I'm like, I mean, that's quite amusing, but obviously everybody's going to recognize who the hell you are.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought that was
so,
good.
so yeah, so I think,
Alan Moderate was quite a fun character. He seemed
yeah,
to be kind of unaware of how much of a badass he was, which is very fun.
yeah, I would agree. I do like him. I think he's very cool. I think, you know, I mean, anybody can turn into a dragon, has like an unbelievably cool sword, is always going to come across as cool. Um, but yeah, I think I don't know how it plays out. I don't understand because like at the end, you know, you've got the assassin, head of the assassins trying to kill everyone off
Mm,
and take the bribe, and then like she gets badly injured, and then they sort of run into this random house, like this random magical house in the middle of nowhere. And I like again, it goes back to the ending not being overly satisfying. So I assume we're not going to get the answers to that in the next book if it's somewhere completely different. So we will wait until.
I'm not saying anything.
No, I know you can't. I will start it probably tomorrow, and but yeah, I think yeah. So I think going back to best character, sorry, Tattersail were probably my favourites. Um, in this book, I think I quite like Paran as well in places.
Yeah, I really liked him.
So and I did like the gods. I like the gods. I just liked the gods just having their own game, but also like there seems to be some level of risk to the gods as well. Like they're not like completely immortal beings. There seems to be some sort of risk to them or some fear within them. Like, you know, the Opon twins run away when they realize that Cotillion has
Yeah,
the sword and stuff. And, you know, it's things like that. You're like, okay, so they're not like
they're
invincible
not
as obviously I
invulnerable.
thought.
No,
Yeah,
yeah, they're very they felt very human for
yes,
gods,
yeah, just
which
immensely powerful.
again really, yeah.
So
And I'm looking forward to. I think somebody said in my comments, like, "Oh yeah, you don't really get a good explanation of how warrens work until book 5." And I replied to them and said, like, I actually don't care if we get an explanation or not. I just like the idea of, you know, basically a pocket dimension that you can draw energy from to cast magic.
yeah,
It's a cool idea. And like
it's
the character saying, like, oh, I felt that Pattersail opened her warren. Like
yeah,
that's a cool like idea.
yeah, it is cool. And I mean, I instantly get imagery of like rabbit warrens, like just like these tunnels, full. And like I remember in one part, I think it's Paran is taken by, oh god, what's his name? The guy in green.
Uh
It's not Popper. Popper, the commander of the Claw.
right.
Popper,
Yeah,
who's
yeah.
like who's always described as wearing green. I instantly think Robin Hood. But
Mm.
anyway, so he takes him to his warren to take him to like where the Empress is and whatever else. And but there's things like there's bits in the warren which have been like almost like damaged or something's got passed through, and like we get bits. So
Mm.
like there's things with the malevolent forces, with the other beings within the tunnels. And then we know like
The Hairlock's
hairlocks like just
warren
going
was
through.
being chased down. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
so
had to
it's like
hide through the
curious about.
abandoned warrens.
Yeah, exactly. So there's still that curiosity about one how warrens work, but also how they interact with other people, and then like um Cadcel sort of get killed by the other person, sort of unleashing the power of their warren onto her, and sort of that's how she dies, kind of thing. Sort of gets
Mm.
overwhelmed by the power, or she sort of embraces it to a letter because she's got the plan to. But anyway, so I think that's all like it's fascinating. I think that's what the key thing is. Like it's fascinating and it's interesting enough that even if you don't understand it, you can go, "That sounds cool. I like the imagery.
Yeah, I really like
I'm
the
willing to go
idea
along
and
with it."
the
Yeah,
visual. So,
yeah.
any
It's
final
also
thoughts?
sorry, just one more thing on that thing. It's
Oh yeah,
also like this huge, great floating city above the side. I mean,
yeah,
it
very
makes no
cool.
sense, but it's cool. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
we'll run with this. I mean, it's a mad
visually
idea.
very cool.
Yeah, it's a mad idea, but we'll run with it because
Mm.
it's really cool. It sounds really cool.
Mm.
So yeah, I think you can forgive a lot for that if it works and it sounds cool.
One of the things that as I was reading it, I was thinking like, oh, this feels like a screenplay, is because it's so visual.
Mm.
There's so many things that are like visually, this is fantastic, and like the imagination that have in my head, like I'm imagining a fantastic, really cool looking scene, but and I was like, you don't get this, I don't think, in the next book so far. It is much more about the prose, about the connection, and like
Okay.
the description. Whereas I feel like a lot of book one is like, there's a floating city, that's pretty cool, and like I don't know, it's a very visual story, and it has like all these, it'll have things like, oh, it's been 30 pages since an action scene, so we're going to have another action scene, and things like that that you would have in a movie that you wouldn't necessarily have in a book.
Yeah,
um but yeah, anyway, any final thoughts, Matt, before we close this one out?
I think
I
my
haven't
final
looked
thoughts.
to see if there's a wiki with percentages. Maybe one, maybe another
Oh
time.
God, yeah. I think my main thing is the prose is very very good. Dialogue's very very good. The characters are interesting. And the thing I really loved about this book is there's not a clear good, evil, light, dark
Mm,
divide, as in so many fantasy books. There's not a clear this is the person you should or group you should be rooting for. And I love the
mm,
fact there's so much suspicion between everybody, and like there's so many relationships, and we get to see people from different points of view, which can change our point of view on what they're really like. And yeah, I just think the fact that the lack of trust between different factions and different groups is very well portrayed within that gives you that level of unease of who's really doing what and why. And we're not clear, and it's not necessarily made clear, and that's fine by me. I quite enjoy that. I'm like, you know, and then just either coming across it or trying to figure it out as we go. But yeah, that's probably my most enjoyable part of it. And like the cinematography of it is pretty epic as well.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
So
that's it. We're done. We've spoiled Gardens of the Moon. Although I would say it's actually, we've been fairly spoiler light, apart from a few, I don't know. Anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed.
And we probably missed a whole host of things because a lot happens.
I think that, you know, wanting to try and keep these videos to under a couple of hours, you end up missing stuff, and we end up, you know, making a few running jokes and like you say, it was good to have that non-spoiler section at the beginning for this one because it is that first novel in the series. If you're going to be reading along with us, dear viewer, then we would love to have you. We're going to be trying to read and kind of do our spoiler discussion for one book per month. We started in November, so that would mean that we'd finish in like July or August next year. So we'll see. Although I think that we might already be behind because it's. Although I'm planning to read Dead House Gates across the whole of December, and I'm already at the end of book 1, so I feel pretty strong about that. I think I'll be okay.
Okay, I've not started, so you know.
I'm sure you'll smash through it and finish before me, based on Gardens of the Moon.
We'll see.
Yeah, and I think this is a very interesting series that has a lot of potential for me. But again, like I say, I want to find something to look towards and look forward to, and I do believe that I may be waiting for Memories of Ice for that one. From some veiled comments I've seen online, if you've read this entire series, I don't want to know in the comments how wrong I am or how you think, where you think things are, because you know that's going to ruin my enjoyment of the series. If you're like, don't worry, the main plot thrust is actually all about the Teleane Mass and blah blah blah. Like I would rather have, I'd rather find it myself. But yeah, we're committed to reading these 3 books. So January will be the last one of the first 3. I've already bought the second 3 from Broken Binding, so I would imagine I will want to read those as well. But we'll see. And do you kind of get through 6 books without reading the last 4? Probably not. So we'll probably end up reading the whole thing. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. If you would like to read along with us, please just subscribe to the channel. That's the easiest way to see these. At some point, I will turn these into a podcast. So then if you're listening to this on a podcast app of choice, hello, hope you enjoyed. And keep subscribing, and we'll keep uploading episodes. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll speak to you soon. Goodbye.